Hi, I'm Leanne Stock, and I am making a video series on different things you can make with plastic bottles. Today's tutorial is my first video, and in this one I'm going to teach you how to make a simple plastic flower that you can attach to a magnet, a pin, to wear as a brooch, and a napkin ring. First thing you want to do is you're going to get a 1-liter plastic bottle, a 2-liter plastic bottle, and 3 water bottles. Normally I would cut these up and then put them in the sink with antibacterial soap and wash them, but for today's video I'm going to show you how to do it as if these were already cleaned. So you'll need a pair of sharp scissors, and the first thing you're going to do is cut into the bottle, and I cut just slightly where this line is around the bottle. And it's right over the, if you look at the bottom of the bottle, this is the bottom of your flower. So I'm going to cut this out. Now you want to save the rest of the bottle because in future tutorials I'm going to show you what to do with the rest of it. So I'm just going to set this aside, and you do the same thing with the 1-liter bottle. So here I have the 2-liter and the 1-liter, and I cut them and I look at them and they're approximately the same depth. This one's a little lower, so I'm going to trim this one down a little bit. And I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't have to be perfect because when it's melted, the plastic is going to melt the way it wants to melt, and it won't look straight anyway. So this is going to fit inside this bottle. Then you're going to need the bottoms of 3 of your water bottles. And it really doesn't matter what kind of water bottle, but you can see that it's kind of flat. Okay, now that you have cut your bottles, you're going to want to drill a hole in the center of each one. I have a little board that I use so I don't drill a hole in my tabletop, which I've done before. Then I have my cordless drill. I'm kind of just centering it. I just put my first hole in this one. You can use a larger drill bit. Probably go a little faster if you used a larger one. Okay. Now I'm finished putting my holes in my bottles. At this point, I'm going to blow away the dust. I'll get my little garbage can out here. I get a can of electronic compressed gas. I buy these 6-pack at Costco. I'm just blowing off the dust from the piece of wood. I'm going to go back a little bit and show you the flower that we're going to be making today. This is a flower in peacock colors, and we're going to do the same color combination. And on the back is a magnet, but you can also attach it to a ring and make a napkin ring out of it, which I'll show you later. Finally, I'm going to show you how to take these beads and make a stem for your flower. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut the leaves of this flower, or the petals rather. And I'm just cutting like a V into each little crevice that is on this bottle. And then I'll do the same thing on the smaller one. Now, if you want your flower to not be as deep as these, you could, when you cut it the first time, you could cut it lower and it will be a shallower flower. So this water bottle this is going to tuck in here, and then this one is going to give it some depth. Each water bottle will have little crevices around the bottle, and at the very top of that is where I like to cut. And here's a little line. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but this is where you want to cut. Just like that. So this piece will end up here in the flower. Then this one is going to be a small flower that's going to sit on top. And once again, I'm going to trim this. I'm going to trim it right about there, just so it's just a couple centimeters from the bottom. Now I'm going to, where each one of these lines are, I'm going to make a little snip. I'll show you what I'm going to do with this later. Okay, so this piece will fit there, and then this is the top of the flower. So in this point, I'm going to cut around here. Now I'm going to cut this little piece out here. I'm going to make little V cuts all around the bottom of the water bottle. Now I'm going to just remove those pieces that were stuck. And now this piece is ready. I forgot to show you earlier that when I cut off the bottom of this, remove the label, and you're going to use the outside of the bottle to make your leaves. So here I'm going to cut 2 leaves. It doesn't matter what size you make them, as long as they're in proportion to the size of the flower. Now you could drill a hole in your leaf. I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile just because it's a lot easier. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to punch a hole there. I'm going to put 2 in each leaf, like that. Doesn't really matter how the holes are lined up. You'll see later it's just going to work when I put everything together. So now that all the pieces are cut, you're going to take your embossing heat tool. It's a 2-speed. I bought this at Hobby Lobby, and it works great to make these flowers. There are no fumes that come off of the plastic. It melts very quickly, so I don't feel it's necessary to wear a special mask. I'm going to turn it to the high setting, I'm going to start with the big flower. And I'm just melting the top of each petal. Then I'm going to go back and melt the sides. The reason I don't do it all at the same time is when the plastic gets too hot, it's hard to control it. So by letting it cool down for the next step, it works a lot better. Okay, I've finished heating up the largest part of the flower, and that's what it looks like. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this bottle, in the same order. So that I can control it a little better. So now I'm going to nestle these two together, and this is what it looks like so far. So now we're going to take the part that gives it some depth. I'm going to turn on the low setting, and I'm just going to heat around these so they curl in a little bit. Okay, now it'll fit right there. I could have made it a little taller because it's kind of small in there, but you get the idea. Now with this one, we're going to have to use our fingers to shape this. So I'm going to turn it on the low setting. I turned it upside down, and then I'm going to just apply enough heat where I can manipulate the plastic. So now I've made a little flower that's going to sit on top of this one. And for this piece, I'm going to leave it right side up, and I'm going to apply heat right here, and these will fold in. Sometimes, depending on the plastic bottle, it'll do it on its own. Other times I'll have to use my fingers to manipulate it. And if it gets too hot, you can wear a heat glove. I'm going to put it on the high setting. And there's another little flower that's going to sit right there. Now to do the leaves. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat these two holes, because when you heat it, it strengthens the holes. And this will be the weakest part of the flower, but by strengthening these, this flower should not come apart. So I just gave it a little zap, and the holes got a little bit larger, but now they're really hard. And I'm going to finish melting the rest of the leaf, or not melting it, but heating it. So now the flower is ready to be assembled, but I want to paint it at this point. The type of paint that I use is called alcohol ink. You can buy Tim Holtz's brand at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I'm usually in the scrapbooking department. I buy these online. These are the Pinata brand. I prefer these because they're shinier than the other alcohol ink. They're really messy. that gets all over, especially when I show you how I paint these. So I'm gonna put on a shirt to protect my clothing and put on some gloves. Here I'm just putting on a man's shirt that I put on backwards and then I button it in the back. I'm also gonna put on some gloves because I got my nails done for this video and I don't want them to get dirty already. Normally, I have very short fingernails and I have paint all over my hands because I usually don't bother with the gloves. Okay, I'm gonna remove all the lids first. This paint dries very quickly and you have to work fast. The colors that I have here are Baja Blue, Sunbright Yellow, Senorita Magenta, Passion Purple, and Lime Green. I'm going to use this as my paintbrush. I'll start with this color because it's the most intense and the deepest, and I don't want to use too much because it'll overtake all the other colors. So I'm just going to put a little drop in there and then flow it around. I might put a little over on this side too. Purple's also intense, so you just need a little bit. This is a new one that I opened and it's not as dark as they normally are. I'm not sure why. You're not supposed to shake these, but I'm gently rocking it back and forth. Yeah, it's very light. That's unusual because usually it's a very dark purple. Now I'm going to use the Baja Blue. I'm going to add a little yellow to that to make green for my peacock color. And we'll see what this purple does when I add pink to it. Usually makes a really pretty violet color. Now I'm going to add some more Baja Blue. Don't really have enough in this flower. And maybe a little more of the Sapphire Blue. I like to have a lot of paint on it and not a lot of clear spots, but I think that looks good. So I'll set that aside and I'll do the next layer. If I use my lime green and add a little bit of yellow to it, it turns into a really pretty shade of green. Like a chartreuse green. I have to be careful when I'm putting yellow by blue because when they mix, it'll turn into brown. So I blew it away from the yellow. And you need a little purple. I'm gonna stop this video and get the other purple because this really isn't showing up. So this is the purple I usually use. You can see it's all splattered. but this should be the right shade. Those little dry flecks are coming off on the table. There we go, that's a lot more intense. I'm not liking all this yellow here, so I'm going to add some more Baja Blue to make it more of a green, brighter green. And I just sprayed my face. That happens a lot. I'll leave the house and I go shopping or something, and then I find that I have paint all over my face. Okay, that's the finished piece. So set that in there and kind of see what it's looking like together. Now I'll do the same thing with this. I think I'll just do Baja Blue on this. I don't need to put different colors on this. You can see the paint just splattered onto my glove. It's really hard to control this spray. For this one, I am going to add more than one color. I think I'll do the sapphire blue and then maybe this purple and a teeny bit of pink. So now this will sit inside the flower, and then the last part of the flower, this little guy, and I think I'll do this green. There's some paint on my glove that's coming off on the flower, but that doesn't bother me. And now I'll paint the leaves. And I'll do part green and part blue. This is really messy, and that's why I have this freezer paper underneath here on my table, but I probably should have used paper towels as well to absorb the paint. I'm going to add a little more Baja Blue to this one. And now I'm finished painting the flower. I'm going to remove the gloves, because I don't want to, I want to feel the flower. It's easier to work with. Now I'm going to grab a piece of floral wire. You can buy this at Michael's in the floral department. It's 22 gauge, and I'm going to cut off, I don't know, about a foot. Now for the center of my flower, I could either use a button or I can use a bead. And that's what it would look like if it were with the button. And if I have different choices for beads for the center, I could put this one, or this green, or this blue, kind of like the blue. This is about a 14 millimeter bead. You can go larger. I think anything smaller would get lost. And I'm going to use some spacers beads to really highlight the bead. And then this is a 6mm round bead. So I'll set these aside. I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to thread it through the small bead and put it in the middle of the wire, and I'm going to bend it so the bead's on top. Now I like to use my crimping pliers for this, and I'll just kind of crimp it right there. It's not perfectly in the middle, but it'll be fine. And then I'll add this little guy. And then I'm going to thread it through the larger bead. And you just need a bead with a hole big enough to fit 2 22 gauge wires through. And now I'll add this larger spacer bead. And then I'm going to thread through all the layers. And this paint is already dry. It's dry to the touch almost immediately. And this should nestle in there better. I'm just gonna turn this bottom flower so that it rests inside the larger one. I guess that's as far as it's gonna go. I have my flower. Then I'm gonna go through the leaves. I'm gonna put one wire through each hole. And this will go on the other side. Oops, put them on the same side. I'll just switch that. So there's my flower. And at this point, you'd bring this ribbon or this wire through the other hole, and this one through this hole. And then using my round nose pliers and my flat nose pliers, or any kind of pliers will work, you're going to pull this tight. And there's your flower. And then you would just wrap this around and around until you don't see this wire anymore and cut it off. And then at that point, I would take my E6000 glue. You can buy this at any craft store, and attach my magnets. I think they call them neodymium magnets. You can buy them at Lowe's or Home Depot. And then you glue, I usually glue 2. I glue one to the back of the flower, and then the other one I don't glue it to anything. And then when this dries, I could put it on my shirt and put the other one inside, and then I don't have any holes in my shirt. You can also attach these to a lampshade, and it looks like a piece of art glass on your lampshade. I also have, this is a combination hair clip and pin back, and I could glue that on the back as well. I'm going to take this apart now and show you how to make a napkin ring. So to speed this up, I'm going to use a button on this one. So I'll put my beads and all that back. Don't need that anymore. I'm going to cut another about 12-foot length of wire. You can use craft wire, but it's not as strong, and I've had it break on me, so I prefer this wire. So I'm just going to put the button, and you need a button with a shank on it. And once again, I'm going to put it in the middle of the wire, and then I'm just going to beat it all through. Wire it all through, that's what I meant to say. This is what it looks like with the button. Now for the ring of the plastic bottle, I'm going to take my 1 liter bottle, go ahead and cut the label off. And then I need to remove this part of the label, and I use Goo Gone for that. So I just took off my shirt and my gloves and found paint on my hands anyway, and they look like splatters, so somehow they got in there, but it's still not as bad as it would have been. I'm going to go ahead and use this Goo Gone spray gel and get rid of this sticky residue from the label. Okay, I removed the label, and now I'm going to cut off this sharp edge. And then I'm going to bend it and cut the ring. And now I'll have to cut off this sharp edge. This is 91% alcohol, and I'm going to clean off the Goo Gone off it a bit. This is also good for taking off the alcohol ink that gets on you. And if the flower had a black or a brown spot or a spot I didn't like, I could use this to remove it and start over. So now I'm going to take the heat tool and turn it on high, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat this edge and then this edge. Okay, now I have my napkin ring. I'm going to punch 2 holes in it. I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile again, trying to put it in the center. There's one. And now I have 2 holes that are fairly close to each other. Once again, I'm going to hit it with the heat gun to strengthen those holes. Okay, now I'm going to assemble my napkin ring. So I've already got my button threaded on the wire. And put it through the top of the flower. Now for the leaves. And then into the ring. Like before, I'm going to put I'm going to put this wire through this hole. And this wire through this hole. I like to unkink or straighten the wire. Sometimes it folds in on itself and then it kind of messes everything up. I'll grab both pliers and pull. And then you just circle these around till it's secure, and then trim that off, and you have a napkin ring. And then finally, I'm gonna take this apart one final time and show you how to make a stemmed flower like this. I'll just unwind that. Okay, for this part, you cannot use a button because you're going to make a little loop at the top of the flower like I did here. So for this, I am not using the same floral wire. I'm using this stem wire that I got at Michael's. It's 18 gauge, it's thicker. So I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to make a little loop at the top, just like that. And then I'm going to thread it through a bead. And I think I'll embellish it with a little spacer bead first. Just going to go through that. Drop and then put the bead. So I've got my bead on the wire and I'm going to go back through the flower, through the top, next layer, and my flower again. I'll just go through one of the holes. I'm just going to put one leaf on right now. It looks like this. And now I'm going to put beads on the wire. And once again, you need beads that are going to easily pass through this 18 gauge wire. And just for the video purposes, I'm just putting on any color right now, just to show you how it's done. So you keep adding beads until you get it to the length of stem that you want. I'll just make a short one today. So I forgot to put on the other leaf. I could have threaded this leaf on there and it would be like that. So now I'm going to use a wire wrapping method. I'm going to make a little loop up here. Never done wire wrapping before. This is basically how you do it. You're going to take this long wire and you're going to wrap it around that to secure the beads on. I'm holding it with my pliers because it's easier. You just keep doing that until the flower is secure. Then you're going to trim off this wire and you have a stemmed flower. Thank you for watching my video today. Again, it's my first video in a series I'll be doing of all the different things you can make with plastic bottles. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and have a great day.